Wow, what a sad ending. Not a shocking one, not a happy one, definitely not a happy one, just a sad one. So, hello guys, and welcome to Jurassic World Chaos Theory Season 2 review. Yes, we finally did it. We finally have the season. So if you don't know how my reviews goes, it's basically full of spoilers. So if you haven't watched the season, go watch it, then come back right here and we'll discuss everything. And tell me what you liked about the season and what you hated about the season, because well, I have some thoughts about this season. And well, let's start with what I think was the bad of the season. And basically, it was the first half of the season, excluding the first episode, because the first episode is definitely one of the best episodes from Chaos Theory as a whole. Like, it had dark moments, it had a really good chase scene, Majungasaurus was a menace. So yeah, episode 1 was really great, but then following that, episode 2 and 4 especially felt really slow. And if I'm being honest, the slow part is the whole camper story, because none of the campers seem to be connected to each other. They don't really have any interaction besides the one pairing, which is of Kenji and Yaz, and basically they are the heart of this season, I should say, because really their story goes throughout this season. Like, Yaz is the therapist to Kenji, because Kenji is suicidal the entire season, and Yaz is like, what are you doing, dude? Just tell me what you're feeling and I can maybe help you. But he doesn't. And yeah, so that story goes throughout this season. And besides that, we have Sammy and Umbala's story, Umbala's being Aminata and Xena. And yeah, their story really had a lot of heart in it, because you really get to feel that Sammy feels home with those two characters. And I really hope that we can get a backstory of what happened with Sammy and her family, because yeah, she had tears in her eyes when she was talking with Aminata and Xena. And yeah, that interaction was really good. But besides those two pairings that I just talked about, the entirety of episode 2 and episode 4 was slow, and the characters felt disconnected from the story, especially Darius. Darius felt disconnected almost the entire season, and that character, I really want to talk about him in another video. So yeah, that's going to be a separate video which I'm going to release probably next week. So yeah, besides all that, let's talk about the good stuff about this season, and which is basically we get to see how Xena and her family, which they are in Senegal, are dealing with the dinosaurs. And they really managed to do a good job with it, because they have stegosaurs that are protecting them from Suchomimus. And then you have Geba, which is a Gallimimus, and I feel like that is a really bumpy like character and people will like that dinosaur. And then we go into episode 3, we get the Brooklyn story, which is the flashback episode, and we see how she was dealing with Camp Fam and her investigation. And we see the ending phase of Kenji Brooklyn's relationship, and you really feel the disconnection between those two characters. Like, they really don't have much interaction or any kind of spark. I mean, it's just Kenji trying to see if Brooklyn cares, but Brooklyn is just so invested in her investigation that she doesn't really notice what Kenji's doing for her. So she goes to Darius, and we finally get the moment of the confession. And besides that confession, we really don't see any flashbacks of Darius and Brooklyn together. And even the confession in itself is such a confusion. Like, Darius confesses, then dials back and says he didn't confess, and Brooklyn realizes that he loves her. And I feel like Brooklyn also likes Darius, but she just feels that it's wrong to feel that way because she just broke up with Kenji. But Darius just takes a leap backwards and goes, no, I didn't love you, and just leaves. So yeah, that is the entirety of Brooklyn's flashback story. Another thing, we do find out what happened at the night of incident, and surprisingly, it wasn't the Allosaurus who bit her arm off, it was the Atrociraptors, and Raptor handler lady was there at the night of the incident. So yeah, we also see how Brooklyn deals with losing one hand and how she goes on in her day-to-day life. That's mainly what happens. But then we have the rest of the season, which has some of the best moments of the season and of the show in itself. But before I get into that, I want to point two things. Don't get excited about the Pteranodon because there's no payoff to that. That was just promotional stuff and we just get to see a normal Pteranodon in the season. And the other thing is, Dino Liberation Now group kind of sucks. Like, they are pathetic. They're kind of a joke. The main leader is Ernest and they want to just show off to people that they're trying to protect dinosaur and they want to look cool. That's the gist of it. So moving on from that, the one thing I really liked about it was Suchomimus. Like, Suchomimus is a show stealer in this season. Like, I thought it would be Majungasaurus, but it's really the Suchomimus. It's a real threat to the camp fam. Other than that, we do see a hippo, and we do see hippo fighting the Suchomimus. And at the end of the day, Suchomimus wins. And you see it eating the hippo. I didn't expect them to show that. Moving on from that, we finally get to know who the broker is, and it is Sayona Santos. And my god, my jaw dropped when I realized what they were doing, because at first she seems normal, but then she brings out the Atrociraptor. She starts painting Brooklyn with the Atrociraptor, and she has this dialogue where she says the laser pointers are so much better than a whistle. So she's indirectly challenging the raptor handler lady, and I feel like we're going to get that face off in another season. But yeah, Sayona Santos is handled so perfectly in this season. Like, she is a genuine threat. Like, in Dominion she was just a bad guy, but here she really is a menace and a threat to the campers. And we also see how Brooklyn deals with the situation. Once she finds out who the broker is and how deadly she can be, she immediately calls Ben and she tells Ben to stay away from her. And so Ben now has the confirmed information that Brooklyn is alive, but he doesn't tell anyone. So you have Ben's whole character arc in this season where he doesn't want to tell anyone that Brooklyn is alive, but at the end of the season, people do find out that Brooklyn is alive, and the reveal of it is how you would expect. Everyone is just shocked and they don't want to believe that Brooklyn can be alive, that Brooklyn lied to them. And it was so good to see. Like, you see everyone's reaction, Kenji's especially, when he sees Ben and Brooklyn together and he's like, wait, he lied? And the rage and the disbelief in him, it was so good. And credit goes to the voice actors. They nailed the voice acting department in this season. And yeah, so Darius also not believing that it can be Brooklyn, and then finally coming to the realization that it is Brooklyn. It worked so well. But yeah, going a little backwards, I want to talk about Yaz being left behind. Like, that was a really unexpected turn of events. Like, Yaz was left behind on her own, and you see how she deals with the thing. Now she's in a much better state of mind compared to how she was in Camp Cretaceous. Like, she's dealing with the situation very well. She survives, not only survives, but also gets the other campers away from danger, because at the end of the day, we get to see Suchomimus fighting off Majungasaurus. And before talking about that fight, I want to talk about, they also showed a lion. Like, first off they showed a hippo, then they go on and show a lion, but we just see the eyes, and then you see eyes behind the lion and they're much bigger. It was the Majungasaurus. It kills the lion, and then the whole moment between the Suchomimus versus the Majungasaurus, it's like T-Rex versus the Spino repeat, but instead of the Spinosaurid winning, it's the Majungasaurus. It killed it in the same fashion as the Spinosaurus killed the Rex, and I really liked how they showed the Suchomimus eye rolling up. And yeah, that was really enough the only other part of the Majungasaurus. Like, we don't see more of Majungasaurus. Next, what we see is Red the Atrociraptor and Baryonyx, a linguistic Baryonyx, being a threat to the campers. And yeah, I didn't expect that Baryonyx to be that kind of a threat, because you see it didn't have any eyes. Okay, I'm jumping all over the place, so bear with me. Its creator, it's Dr. Saar, who created those dinosaurs, who's creating the new dinosaurs, and you see the campers going in there like, what's going on here? And he's like creating these again for military purpose, and the way he handles the Baryonyx is with snapping of his fingers. So yeah, that plays a part in the very last episode, because I didn't know. I don't think raptors can do that. Can they? Like, Atrociraptor mimic the snapping of fingers with its tongue, and then the Baryonyx and raptor were working together, and I was like, oh my god. Like, that level of intelligence was something I believe Indoraptor and Dominus only could have done, but we see a Atrociraptor doing it, and I was like, okay, that is crazy. And I really hope we get to see that Baryonyx again, but I feel like the whole building blows up and Baryonyx was still in the building, so maybe it's an RIP to the Baryonyx. Yeah. Now, moving on to the last episode, we have this moment, right? We find out Xana's father, Usman, and we see how Xana interacts with his father, and now things starts to make sense why she acted the way she did with Darius throughout the season. Like, she was kind of being annoying to Darius, and like she understood what he was trying to say. Like, she was one step ahead of Darius in everything he was trying to say. She already knew it, and the reason she knew it is because her father is also a Dino nerd. So Yaz kind of jokes about it while Xana was annoying Darius. So yeah, that was kind of cool. But then you move to the very end of the episode and you see Kenji holding Brooklyn, trying to convince her that she should come back with them, and you see all the campers standing in front of Brooklyn, yet Brooklyn chooses to leave them. And I was in disbelief. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like, that dialogue, "I'm not the same Brooklyn anymore," happens at the very end of the season, and it's just, it was heartbreaking. Like, all the campers had a look of shock and sadness on their faces, and it was just like, where do you go from this? Like, also we get to find out that Sayona has partnered with Biosyn, thus we fall into Jurassic World Dominion. But yeah, where do you go with this? Like, the ending is just Brooklyn leaving the campers, and the campers are just there standing and looking at the plane going in the air, and they can't do anything. Where do you go from that? What do you do? Like, it's exciting. Like, I feel like second half of this season really saved this season as a whole. So if I had to give an honest rating for this season, I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. I mean, it's not better than the season 1, but it's not as bad as Camp Cretaceous season 4 or 5. So yeah, I guess 7 out of 10 is a solid score for this season. I mean, as I said, the second half of this season is what makes it worth the while. Like, it could have been really bad, but the second half really saved it, and the ending was just, it gets you excited for season 3. So yeah guys, this wraps up today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, comment down below what you think. Do you like this season or hated it? And are you excited for season 3? If you are, as always, like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.